Hi, I'm Avery,
And I'm Lily.
and welcome back to From the Closet. Today, we are covering Gold Titanium Alloy Man.
I think that'd be bad for the press. How we figure out a different name?
Um, no.
Okay.
Okay, but like you see the title, it's Iron Man. We're finally getting to the MCU, and we're going to be working through it very slowly. We are quite possibly never going to get caught up uh, to what's releasing in theaters, but we are going to cover everything eventually, just slowly. So deal with it.
Yeah, we're probably not going to cover everything. We're going to try.
Oh
We
no, we're going to
don't
do
know.
it.
Well, they're always going to release more stuff. So, and, covering them all would seem very,
Sometimes there's a decent sized break.
that is true. I guess we could get caught up on there. Or they just, they just decide to, drop the series. Very unlikely, unless it's 30 years later, we're still doing the podcast.
Oh yeah. Totally they'll drop the series. That's totally going to happen.
I
Yeah.
know, maybe 30 years later. Who knows? Maybe Disney comes bankrupt.
Oh yeah, that'll happen.
Cue laugh track.
But anyway, it's about time we get here. We watched this on. Okay, I need to vent my frustrations a little bit. We both watched this on Disney Plus, and I had the subtitles on, and pretty much any time that somebody was speaking in a different language, it would either say speaking foreign language or speaking insert name of language and wouldn't translate what they said. That shit
Well, okay.
pisses me off.
Well, there is one scene where you're not supposed to know what they said.
Yeah, except there's plenty of people in the world who know exactly what they said.
Yeah, and then they get an insight on what they said. And now they know what the rest of the plot is. So good on them.
Hmm.
That's their reward for knowing that language. They get to know a little bit insider on what's going to happen in the rest of the movie. You have to earn
But
it.
but anyway, let's get into this. A little bit of a PSA for you, because I know that you haven't seen the rest of the MCU, and I have. Um, the Colonel James Rhodes that you see in this movie,
Mhm.
he will be in future movies, but with a different actor.
Really?
Yeah,
Hmm.
because he refused to take a pay cut for Iron Man 2
Yikes.
when everyone else was willing to do so.
Hmm.
So, yeah,
I
that's
mean, wait, is this still Disney Marvel or just Marvel?
this is still Disney Marvel. Like,
Okay, yeah, why do they have to do pay cuts when it's supported by
because
Disney?
because at the time the MCU hadn't, reached its massive level of success yet. And
Uh,
we are in a this is like during the period of a recession. Like,
hmm,
for quite some time Disney was making movies that they didn't have to release in theaters because people weren't going to the theater for the most part. um that's why the Tinkerbell movies were coming out in the early 2000s, because like they were movies that they could release straight to DVD, and they found that people would buy them.
hmm. Honestly, when you were describing that, I almost thought you were talking about COVID.
No, definitely not COVID here. But yeah, this movie kickstarted the MCU, so which of course has become a multi-billion-dollar franchise. Um, I think 4 out of the 10 highest-grossing movies of all time are from the MCU.
Actually, come on, look this up.
Yeah, go ahead.
Um, how much?
Just look up highest grossing movies of all time.
No, I want to know specifically how much Infinity Wars did, not Endgame did.
Yeah, Infinity War, which, for those of you out there who don't know, Infinity War is my favorite Marvel movie. Just
Avengers Endgame, 2.798 billion USD.
damn, that's a lot of money.
Yeah. And Infinity Wars, 2.048 billion USD.
Again, that's a lot of money. But it all started with Iron Man. Now, you've told me in the past that you don't really like live action superhero movies. So,
And, well, I was thinking about that while I was watching it. It's really because I, before in the past, I could not get myself to sit through it and watch it all. I guess that was also because of my young self terrible attention span. But I also just like, animated things, gun, violence. That wasn't really my forte, even though I was more violent. I'm not just the violence all the time.
yeah.
But
This movie doesn't really have a lot of action scenes. Um,
yeah, and that's why I really like this movie. We'll get into it, but you have Tony Stark as this, I'm gonna say, stuck up jerk.
yeah, like, it is really interesting to analyze the psychology of Tony Stark. Like, throughout the entire MCU, it's very interesting. But even within this, like, within just this movie, there's also some interesting development going on because he really does start out as like this arrogant douche who doesn't seem to care about anybody. And by the end of the movie, he's like risking his life for other people. And he's like,
And um, at the end of this movie, you get the first mention of Shield.
well, technically, S.H.I.E.L.D. was mentioned like 3 or 4 times throughout the movie, but like by its full name,
Hmm.
which is the Strategic Homeland in I think it's Intelligence and Enforcement Logistics Division. No, it's intervention, not intelligence.
Yeah, this is why I memorize it by its acronym,
Yeah, Shield is a lot easier to say.
which very good acronym by the way, because it's Homeland Defense.
Yeah, and they're going to become very important later. Um, this movie also started the little trend that Marvel's got, where uh, they include a post-credit scene after every single
Oh
movie.
frick!
You didn't watch it, did
Yeah,
you?
I actually, what's actually interesting? I bet if you start describing it to me, I'd be like, oh yeah, I saw that when I was little.
Yeah. Basically, Nick Fury shows up and he's like, "Hey, you're not the only superhero in the world. You've become part of a bigger universe and you just don't realize it yet. I'm here to talk to you about the Avenger Initiative." And that's it.
Y- Yeah, that seems a bit familiar.
Yeah.
I mean, Nick Fury just sounds familiar. Just, hey, want to sign up to my fan club?
But anyway, yeah. So basically, we start off this movie with Tony in the back of a Humvee, and they are. We later learn that they are returning to a military base from a weapons testing facility. But
Mhm.
while they're returning to the base, they get attacked, and uh, a they get attacked by a group of terrorists. We don't yet know who they are, and a bomb shows up like right next to Tony Stark, and it blows up, filling his chest with a bunch of shrapnel. And the bomb has the Stark Industries logo on it. Then we cut
Yeah, doesn't
back.
that change your entire worldview?
Yeah. Then we cut back, and we basically, get an overview of Tony's life, and it's, just like his father created this company that makes and sells weapons, and he was a genius. Then he died. Then Obadiah Stane took over the company, while Tony Stark just kind of partied and got drunk and shit. And then eventually, Tony Stark took over the company after he turned 21. And it's his, genius and everything. He basically builds this missile that breaks apart and shoots out a bunch of other smaller missiles, and that's the weapon that they are testing in Afghanistan.
Isn't that actually a war crime?
What, testing a?
No, having that as a bomb that has smaller things in it, like projectiles.
I don't know, but anyway, they test
Weird
this.
thing to
They
point out in a podcast, but
they test this missile, and then we see the Humvee again gets blown up. They show Tony in being having been captured by a group of terrorists, and then we get the title screen, and we then see Tony waking up and pulling, I believe, what's called. No, I'm not going to say something stupid and embarrass myself. They pull a tube. He pulls a tube out of his nose, which, from what I've heard, is, the medically accurate way that they would remove it. It just looks really gross.
well, I mean, yeah, you're removing a tube from your nose.
Yeah. And he discovers that there is an electromagnet just in his chest, and
Into a car battery.
Yeah, it's hooked up to a car battery. Um, and we meet this scientist guy, Jensen, who basically saved his life by putting that electromagnet inside him. And then this terrorist group comes in. They're revealed as the 10 Rings. They want Stark to build another Jericho missile for them. They show him like all of the Stark Industries weapons that they have, and they basically are saying, "Build us the Jericho missile, and then we'll let you go free." But of course, Tony and Yunsen both know that they're not going to do that. And cue
Bang,
a
shooty,
whole
shooty.
montage. Cue a whole montage of Tony working on stuff. He builds a miniaturized arc reactor to essentially replace the car battery to power the electromagnet instead. And we learn about Jensen's family from Gomira, and we see all of that. We learn that Tony doesn't really have anything, and we also have this whole montage. Then we follow up with this montage of Tony basically building the Mark I armor to escape. We eventually get to the point of Tony's escape, which is kind of just like pretty badass, I'm gonna say.
I
Like,
know these bullets doing nothing to him. He's like, oh, no.
yeah, and like, um, I expected that when he started, blasting those flamethrowers, that it was going to be a sort of thing of where they would play Black Sabbath's Iron Man while he's doing that. But it's a lot more brutal than that, because like they just don't. They don't play any music there while he's blowtorching them. But essentially, he blows up all the weapons and, you know, yeets himself and crashes somewhere in the desert. And then he's just kind of walking around, which that's kind of scary too. You escaped the terrorists, but now you're alone in the desert. Fortunately, he's found in what seems like 10 minutes.
I mean, let's be honest, he's Tony Stark. I bet, 5 different search operations has already been started. And
Yeah.
that's just the public ones.
So he's found, coincidentally, by the same guy who is like seemingly his best friend. Um,
I believe it.
yeah, totally believable. He gets home, reunites with Pepper, his assistant, and that's all she ever is to him. Totally.
And they
um,
were co-workers.
yeah. But yeah, he's like, no, I'm not going to a hospital. I want a cheeseburger and I want to hold a press conference.
That's the American dream right there.
Although, to be honest, I wouldn't go to Burger King to get my cheeseburger, but whatever.
I mean, you just spent 3 months escape, escaping from terrorists. I think at that point, you don't care what type of cheeseburger. You just want a cheeseburger.
I don't know if they ever said it was 3 months.
I believe Tony Stark said 3 months.
Okay. I don't remember that specifically, but you could be right. Also, just kind of a
I don't know.
foreshadow report, the 10 rings are a group you want to remember. They'll be important later.
A different movie or
In multiple different movies.
reoccurring bad guys?
Yes. So, basically, we get to this press conference, and this is where Tony reveals that he's gonna stop making weapons.
And everyone took that peacefully.
Yes.
Said no one.
Yeah, they totally took it peacefully. 100%. Yet, no, it causes an outrage, and the board of directors at his company files an injunction against him, which we later learn to have been the work of Obadiah Stane. Whoops. Uh, and we also learn, we get this whole montage of Tony basically, building the Mark II armor, a new Iron Man suit that's just much better in every way. Meanwhile, the Ten Rings are gathering up the pieces of the Mark I armor, which Obadiah would then steal after Tony showed up and wrecked the Ten Rings because they attacked Golmira. Remember, that was the town that Jensen was from.
Yeah.
So Tony showed up, wrecked their shit, almost killed a guy in the Air Force.
Almost, though. Not a reported death. No, it was just a training accident, remember?
Oh, yeah. I love how Rhodes was like, it's not that simple, Tony. Yeah, it was a training accident.
I still find that funny.
Yeah, that was quite hilarious. I'm kind of intrigued about the device that Obadiah used on the one guy from the Ten Rings and on Tony because it has never shown up again.
He called it temporary paralysis,
Yeah, but it never shows up again, ever.
which I really want to know how in the world they got to record the veins showing. It's actually pretty cool.
Yeah, they did some. A lot of this movie was pretty cool for 2008. And
So
interestingly, the next movie in this series came out only a month later.
and then we have I kind of want to make I think it's the most iconic line.
Yeah, hold on, we'll get there. Uh,
Uh,
there's two really iconic lines in this movie, and we'll get to them. But so essentially, Obadiah kind of steals uh, all the pieces of the Mark One
What
armor.
I love about this scene is where, he goes into the little shed and, all of them security guards are just standing there. He comes out and they have him exactly like somehow Obadiah's team disarmed everyone there, and as he was leaving, you just hear a lot of gunfire.
Yep. But
Which,
basically, Obadiah steals all the pieces of the Mark One armor that they've got and tries to get the employees at Stark Industries to basically build an upgraded version. And the problem is they can't power it because they don't have the miniaturized arc reactor. And Obadiah is basically like chastising one of the engineers about it, and he's like, "The technology doesn't exist. It's just not possible." And we get one of the most iconic lines in the
lines.
movie, which I wish we could play it, but we want to avoid copyright. But it's Tony Stark was able to build this in a cave with a box of scraps. And credit to the engineer because he gives the perfect reply. I'm sorry, I'm not Tony Stark. So,
Oh god, I love just but sir, I'm not the Tony Stark legend, the greatness.
remind me after I get through summarizing the plot. There is something that I do want to go back to that I missed.
Okay.
But anyway, Obadiah basically decides, all right, I'll just go steal the one that's actually inside Tony's chest. So he does it.
That's not
Um,
ballsy at all.
yeah. And essentially, Tony has to, basically flop his way into an elevator to go down to his lab and grab the old one, which is no longer functioning as well. But Pepper kind of saved it and, boxed it up and
Which
everything.
which Tony said, not to, just throw it away.
Yeah,
And well, you wouldn't be alive if that would have happened.
right? So yeah, he puts that in. We know at this point that Obadiah is the bad guy and everything, and that he's planning to kill Pepper because he just kind of monologued to Tony pretty much his entire plan. Which, let's be honest, there wasn't much of a plan.
Yeah, like when he even said that, I was like, wait, he did that? There was a plan?
And then we have this big fight between Tony and Obadiah, who is pretty much now the Ironmonger. That's what he's called, and it's kind of funny because he mentioned that he actually said the words Ironmonger earlier in the movie. It was kind of a nice little bit of foreshadowing. Um, we're not
Which
going to
I'm
talk
all I'm
about the.
remembering is just like a skit of someone just roasting that name.
But yeah, we essentially. I'm not going to really talk about the fight all that much because there's not really much to say. Um,
I can summarize the entire fight. Iron Man go up. Jebediah and he froze. Goes down. By end. I don't know.
arc reactor go boom. But yeah, so we get to this press conference, and Tony's supposed to give an alibi that Shield has prepared for him, and instead he decides not to, and he ends the movie with quite possibly the most iconic line in the entire MCU. I am Iron Man. And everyone gets up and just kind of starts screaming a little bit. Ironically, this line, from what I understand, was ad libbed. It wasn't in the script.
Yeah, that sounds familiar.
Yeah. But see, here's the crazy thing. All right. It doesn't seem like that big of a deal, but at the time, pretty much every superhero movie, the superhero wouldn't, reveal their true identity. So this was like a big thing at the time. It was, you wouldn't have a superhero that everybody knew who they were underneath their suit.
I just love when he was going through the cars, like, damn, now I wouldn't even believe I was Iron Man.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. Um, but yeah, that's pretty much the plot of this movie. Now, I do kind of want to go back because there is a funny, hilarious line from Pepper early on in the movie. Um, so basically, this reporter shows up while Tony's like leaving a party, and she kind of like chastises him, and they end up sleeping together. And then the next morning, she wakes up, kind of alone. She wanders around the house. Pepper shows up, and this reporter lady, she's like, "Oh, all these years, and Tony still got you picking up the dry cleaning." To which Pepper replies brilliantly, "I do anything and everything that Mr. Stark requires, including occasionally taking out the trash."
Trap. God, I love that line.
Like, that is such a savage burn. It's brilliant.
Whoever just saw that deserves a raise.
Yes. But yeah, this movie really did kickstart something great. It kickstarted a multi-billion-dollar franchise, and um, I mean, it also kind of started a trend that many people do not really like that much in the MCU. It's the first of many MCU movies where the bad guy has the same powers as the hero but uses them for evil. And several other movies coming up in the MCU will do that too. It'll
Oh,
be,
goody.
yeah.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, I kind of liked the idea of, this the terrorist being the, main bad guy because it made sense. They bad. You don't really have to explain why they're bad
Yeah, but then
because they're terrorists.
you also do kind of, have to explain Tony's, radical change in character. So having the whole plot line of his company secretly dealing underneath the table and Obadiah being the head of all of that,
That is
it
okay. That makes sense. Yeah.
yeah.
So, and here's what I was getting from this. Because a little bit did confuse me. So, Obadiah was giving it to the terrorists as well as, U.S. military. So, it created a war that would keep on going, and they both uh, lined his pockets with money.
Yeah, that's kind of
Okay,
how
just making
weapon
sure I
sell.
got,
Yeah, that's
making sure
kind
I
of
got
how
that.
weapon selling works. You provide for both sides, then you're going to be getting money from both sides. It's making money from a war. That's just kind of how it works. Um,
Actually, I remember, God, it's such a weird thing bringing this up, but Team Fortress 2 actually had that kind of plot line.
hmm, I've never played Team Fortress 2
Yeah, I
or
just wanted
1.
to quickly bring that up and drop it.
But yeah, this movie I think is a little bit underrated. A lot of Marvel movies definitely have like some much more like hype scenes, which to be fair, there's usually a lot of build up to those scenes, and it's nice to see. We'll eventually
Um,
get to like Endgame where there's some amazing scenes that mm, I initially watched this movie in theaters. I
Really?
think.
You
Yeah.
think?
Yeah. At the time, I didn't quite realize that they were going to be doing this whole, uh, universe type thing.
Hmm.
I think in my mind, I didn't really make the connection until Iron Man 3, which, we'll get to eventually.
Um,
Phase 1 is kind of
actually,
short. Well, like, phase 1 is kind of short. We'll probably get through phase 1 pretty fast. Um, I mean, comparatively to the other phases.
hmm,
But I think part of the reason why this movie is a bit underrated as well is the fact that the other Iron Man movies just aren't that good. Like, they're really not.
Iron Man 3, isn't that the one with Heat Guy?
With who?
I'm calling him Heat Guy.
That is such a bad name. But supposedly it's the Mandarin. We'll get to
Hmm.
that.
Does he have fire-like abilities?
Yeah.
Okay, these. Actually, weirdly enough, I seen the ending of how I, where was I going with that? Oh, it's Iron Man 3. I never seen the beginning of it. Seen the ending.
So
Watch the
for
ending.
someone who going into this didn't like live action superhero movies, what are like
Um,
in general like how do you feel about this? Did you enjoy the experience?
I really loved the parts where they weren't fighting actually. Like I just loved the the subcontext of Tony, who was an absolute jerk, you know, after this trauma experience, wants to vote, you know, differently, weapons. And Jebediah, who was, secretly giving weapons to both sides, and probably a bit salty that, this kid would later end up, taking the business and making that press announcement, took the business.
One line that kind of annoyed me was during the fight between Tony and Obadiah. You keep saying Jebediah. It's
I don't know. I don't know where I'm getting that from.
I
I
mean,
it's weirdly enough, Jebediah seems like a National Instinct, and I think I remember what movie that's from.
well, I mean, there is a Jebediah in the Bible too. I think.
Really, never read it, but I think it was from what's the movie I was required to watch in class? The movie everyone loves, but you actually don't like,
Is it Citizen Kane?
Citizen Kane.
Okay, I don't remember
Obadiah.
I don't remember a Jebediah in Citizen Kane, but it's been like 3 years since I've seen it.
Anyway, what was his name again? Just so I
Obadiah. Obadiah
Obadiah,
Stane. We
which will
aren't.
be the last time I have to remember his name.
Yeah, because
Oh
he's
well,
really not going to be brought up again. Um,
but Obadiah, he actually does have a motive. At least it wasn't presented, but he it was mentioned over and over that this kid, Tony Stark, took over the business from him. Like, he was just temporary, but he still took it. It was just a kid.
yeah, but like also, I do want to get back to what I was trying to say
Oh,
earlier
sorry about that.
because I okay, so there's this line from Obadiah that really annoys me, and it's during the fight between him and Tony.
Mhm.
He says, "I built this company from nothing." No, you didn't. You took over the company after Howard Stark died.
I think I
That's
think that's
not
the
nothing.
first. I think that's the first stage of projecting. Of I was the real good guy. your family tainted the company. I'm making it better.
Whoa.
I mean, he's a bad guy for a reason. Just his justification on everything he's done.
Yeah. So, the next movie in this franchise is going to be The Incredible Hulk. Uh,
I've heard colorful things about that movie, mostly from you, because I only hear Marvel things from you.
yeah, we will certainly get to The Incredible Hulk. But
Year 2023.
no. But for now, I think we are coming to a place where um, we can
Rate the
conceivably
movie.
rate it if you don't
Um,
have anything more to say.
um, for a rating, and I wasn't too sure. I wouldn't say, I particularly say this is like best movie of my life, and I will say under any other circumstances, I probably could not finish this movie. That's just me and live action superheroes. If I wasn't doing this for a podcast, I would try to get myself to watch it, but my attention span would probably leave elsewhere. That being said, though, it's still a really good movie, and sets up the groundwork for the universe of to come. So I'm gonna say 7.5.
I personally, before starting this recording, thought about it for a while, and I think I'm going to give this movie a 9.0.
Okay. Um, I might. I think after we cover a few movies, I do actually kind of want to look back on some of my ratings and see how they compare after I've seen more, superhero movies and see where that places me.
Yeah, I think after we complete phase one, we
Hmm.
could maybe do an episode on, just phase one as a whole and like reflect back on our, like,
I would
how
like
we
that. Yeah,
view,
that would
yeah,
be fun.
reflect back on how we viewed each movie. Um,
Um, I will say, YouTube has been marketing this um Loki. YouTube really wants me to watch Loki. And I'll be honest, I'm actually kind of interested.
we will get there eventually.
Is I know we're not even on Thor yet, but Loki is just such a interesting character to dive in on. I
Yeah,
can't wait, actually.
we got two more movies to watch first before we
Only
can get to
two?
Thor. Yeah, only
Oh wait,
two.
so we have
The
the Hulk
Incredible Hulk.
movie
Yeah, The
and
Incredible Hulk, and then Iron Man 2.
Iron Man 2.
Yeah. So I know you'll be looking forward to that.
Yeah.
But for now, before we come to a close on this episode, we've got to spin our little fantastical wheel of movies. It's not really that fantastical. You guys can't see it
We
though.
just like to pretend
So,
it's fantastic.
yeah, I mean, we got to spin this wheel. And
Which
it, so, Lily,
yeah.
it landed on the Hunger Games.
Oh, how interesting.
Now, the Hunger Games will not be the episode that we cover next week. That will be on the Polar Express because it will be our Christmas special. The week after that, we are going to be doing Camp Season 1. And the week after that is probably going to be our January movie of the month. So it'll be a while before we get to the Hunger Games. But do be looking forward to it. And with that,
When it eventually comes out.
yeah. And another thing before we go, there will be a link below for you to rent or purchase Iron Man, you can also watch it on Disney Plus if you have Disney Plus.
I also
And
get Disney Plus.
yeah, and
Please sponsor
then
me.
and with that being said, I've been Avery, that's been Lily, and we'll see you next time.
Fair do.